Hello and welcome to the European Parliament in Brussels for this new edition of Talking Europe. Last weekend, hundreds of thousands of demonstrators took part in a global protest against politicians and banks. Inspired by Spain's Indignados and the Occupy Wall Street movement, demonstrators turned out from Europe to Asia to demand what they call global change. Now, this week, we've invited a member of the indignant movement. He will have the opportunity to confront a leading member of the European Parliament. Also, don't miss the second part of Talking Europe. As European leaders wrangle over how to solve the never-ending euro crisis, I'll talk to Guy Verhofstadt, former Prime Minister of Belgium and President of the Alliance of Liberals and Democrats in the European Parliament. Two guests here at the European Parliament. Starting to my right with Stephen Hughes. Welcome to our show. You're a British MEP from the Alliance of Socialists and Democrats. At home you belong to the Labour Party, which is now in the opposition, as we know. Also on this set, Damien, a French student who currently lives in the Netherlands. You're a member of the indignant movement. You travelled to Brussels last week to take part in this global protest movement. Now, this is, of course, an opportunity for you to confront a leading MEP here in the European Parliament and ask him all the questions you want to ask. And for you, Mr. Hughes, it will also be a chance to tell us what Europe is doing to address the fears of many young Europeans who are very worried about the fallout of the current crisis. But before we start our debate, I'd like to take a look at our report, which recaps what happened last weekend. As we'll see, it was indeed a global protest movement across the world in more than 82 countries.
The march against corporate greed is going global. 5 months after Los Indignados first took over the plazas of Madrid, the Occupy Wall Street movement is inspiring Europeans to vent their anger again. From Berlin to Brussels and Zurich to Rome. The Italian capital is on lockdown. Historical sites are closed amid tight security. Violent clashes break out as tens of thousands protest against the selfishness of bankers and politicians.
I hope this autumn will be our era.
We can already start to see the success that we're having, and that's despite the lack of any political leadership. But clearly we will only achieve success outside of the current political system, and we've accepted that, and that's why we have very difficult contact with the political world.
Well, it's the political world that are going to deliver whatever is delivered in the months and years ahead, and we need to work together to achieve that. To say that the political class is a total write-off is, quite frankly, not the way to go. You have not got control of any of the levers in society at the moment. What you need to do is to maintain the pressure on the people who have got access to the levers and make sure they do the right thing. And I think we are trying to do the right thing.
You see, Mr. Hughes, I disagree with people holding the lever. I think it's because some people, a few hundred people, hold the levers that our society is in such deep trouble. You know, if we were expectant from the politicians, we would only ever get disdain and no answer. And so when you say we have to work with the political world, I disagree. I think we have to abolish the political class.
What alternative do you see then? May I ask you?
What would you put in place?
Well, I think that our popular assemblies, every one of them at which I've been, are better decision-making bodies than any parliament.
And what have you changed as a result of that, directly yourselves?
Well, ourselves, we've changed our souls, we've changed our outlook on the world. How many times have I heard as I was growing up that our generation is politically apathetic and has absolutely no interest in current affairs? I think this is the absolute proof of it. We have no interest in participating in the existing political structure because it doesn't represent us and it doesn't represent our interests.
But if you stand completely separate and apart from the decision-making structure, you will not change anything materially in society.
No,
that's all I'm saying.
No, we disagree with the structure itself. I think if we participated, there was the suggestion in Spain that Democracia Ruralia form itself as a party. And this was blocked by the popular assemblies because we don't believe that by running into politics we will change anything. I think the only thing that will happen is that a leadership will emerge that will eventually get corrupt and we will just be one more corrupt party. So that's why we don't want to participate in the process.
Well, I've spent most of my life trying to make sure that the political process is changed to be more representative, to be more in contact with people. I'll continue to do that, and I'll continue to listen to your movement whether you like it or not, and try to do the right thing in the political life that I lead in this institution. And I hope at some point you'll recognise the need to establish some sort of dialogue to bring about the changes that both you and I want.
I'm absolutely for the dialogue. Every time we receive an invitation from a politician, we have to decline it because politicians invite a delegation to their office, and that's not an invitation that we can accept. Because
they can't invite all of you.
No, well, in that case, they're very welcome to come to any popular assembly and speak as a normal citizen, or they're very welcome to organise a separate event where as many people can attend as possible.
But you recognise that the European Parliament, being the only directly elected body in the EU, has some legitimacy and has to be into a dialogue.
It has some legitimacy. It also has a collective responsibility. When I hear you shifting the blame to the Council, to the Commission, to the Conservatives, I can't help but think that's exactly the sort of discourse that the citizens can't take anymore. It's because citizens are tired of hearing politicians tell us, oh, it's not my fault, it's the other guy's fault, that we don't get anywhere. There's a collective fault of the political world. The political class is unfit to rule today. And that is not your individual responsibility. So you are calling for a revolution, as far as I understand.
Well,
no, I think if we call for a revolution, we're going to get stuck up on the words. I think it can be an evolution. I don't think it necessarily needs to be a violent overthrow of the system.
Well, that's a relief to hear that. Yeah.
Clearly, there needs to be a fundamental structural change in the political and economic systems. And if you want to call that a revolution, then I'm not afraid of words. But
I mean, we are partly to blame that we lost the last election at the European Parliament. I'll admit that, but I'm merely stating the reality when I say that the Council, Commission, and Parliament are dominated by the right wing at the moment, and they're not listening to the points that are being made by your movement. That's all I'm saying.
Are left-wing governments doing any better? Is Mr. Zapatero doing any better?
Well, you've got to recognise the reality of the financial, the credit rating agencies breathing down his neck as well. Unless he does what Merkel and Sarkozy says and impose absolute rigorous austerity, he'll be downgraded to triple X.
That's kind of the problem, isn't it?
He'll be downgraded to triple X, and interest rates will go through the roof.
I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there as we're running out of time. But thank you very much for this very lively debate, and thank you for taking part in this edition of Talking Europe. Now, please stay with us.